So yes, here we are on the Zero Motorcycles SR. The look on that kid's face says it all. It's an electric motorbike with a motor roughly the size of a pasta pan, generating an astonishing 67 horsepower and 144 newton meters of torque. That's astonishing! If you bear in mind, the BMW R1200R and the BMW R1200 RS that I just recently test rode had 125 newton meters of torque, 144. But because it's an electric motor, the real surprise is it comes in from the very bottom. Oh, that is astonishingly fast. And all of this power is driven through a practically maintenance-free carbon fibre belt drive system and a direct drive clutchless transmission. So it is unfathomably smooth. First thing I noticed when I jumped on the DS, which I've already test ridden, click here to see the video now, was just how smooth it is. It's so smooth. Purely because there is not an ounce of vibration from the engine. It's silky smooth. Because obviously the engine is just the electric motor. It's just sat there spinning around. There's no pistons jumping around. There's no great big metal weights trying to get out and unsettling everything. Look, if I do that, the bike jumps around because I'm unsettling it all. It's just super smooth, and the brakes are pretty sharp too. The second thing I noticed, well, probably more accurately the second thing I noticed was how incredibly powerful it was. But the next thing I noticed was how light it is. It's so light. I've just jumped on this bike, I don't know it yet. Pottering along at absolutely no speed is easy as cake. Oh look, sounds just like my bike. That's because this bike has a curb weight of 188 kilograms, which, if you bear in mind the fact that it is 30 or 40 kilograms lighter than my Versys, yet it has twice the torque. That's an astonishing combination. But most of all, it's just that power, that incredible... Oh, it just throws you right into the back of the seat. That's unbelievable. I actually think this is the highest torque bike I've ever ridden. I should clear up that in the DS review there was a hand cam second view. Sadly, they informed me that because I took a bit too long on the DS ride, I haven't got as long with this one, so I had to whip off, set everything up super quick, and there just wasn't time to faff around with the second camera, so I'm afraid you're stuck with face cam for today. The ABS is very sensitive. It wasn't super aggressive with the brake there on the rear brake, but the ABS was kicking in, which should indicate to you that this bike does have ABS. So very light. The weight of this thing there just isn't any. It's so eerie to have no sound whatsoever. Just the sound of my thoughts. Calculating how much money I would be saving if I had this bike rather than a petrol guzzling beast. They say that these bikes cost 1 euro cent to run per kilometre. I did some quick maths, my Versys runs on 8 cents per kilometre, so it's 8 times cheaper to have one of these. The riding position's really nice. I'm leaning forward, and compared to the DS, which is the dual sport version, this is the sport road version, SR, compared to that, the position is a lot more further forward. The bars are kind of raked forwards and at the same time back in a sporty kind of way. Yet it's still comfortable. It's more comfortable actually than the R1200 RS was, for me at least. Everything seems to be in quite a good position. Whether I could ride this for a prolonged amount of time with this slight forward lean, I'm not sure, but I can certainly feel already that for the twisties, for the more aggressive riding, this position is a lot better suited to that kind of sporty use with this slightly more aggressive stance. V8, I've got a V-Nun, love. V-Nun power. Now the thing that's really astonishing is once you get out of the town, holy crap, that is so quick. Just like that, 100 kilometers an hour. Absolutely rinses the speed out of itself. It is unbelievably fast. It really is. I'm not even exaggerating because it's something new and it's something interesting. It is just astonishingly fast. As I said in the other video, it makes this strange kind of tauntaun noise when you give it a twist. Let's see if we can try it out. Very easily U-turnable. That is stupidly fast. This is a zero-cylinder license destroyer. It really is. I mean, maybe not on the motorway, but in town, with that kind of acceleration, you're going to be breaking the speed limit at every friggin' traffic lights. No doubt about it. See, his bike makes just the same noise as mine. Probably frightened the shit out of him. Good thing is, you don't feel like you're disturbing the countryside at all, cruising along, making absolutely no noise. Bad thing is, where the friggin' hell am I? So it takes a bit of getting used to trying to do slow manoeuvre-y shizzle like that there, because there's no clutch to feather. It's all about brake and throttle. That was a bit of a strange experience. It's not quite as smooth, but that's something of course you could get used to. Cannot get over that speed. The suspension is very stiff, it's giving a very firm ride. I'm definitely feeling all the bumps in the road. I tried to blip the throttle then. It's been a disastrous move. I nearly did that on the last one as well. Right, mate? Trying to blip the throttle coming down on a single gear bike. Just gonna kill yourself, Andy. The sensation of speed is really strange because there's no engine noise. I mean, it's a big part of the stimulus you get, isn't it? You know you're going faster because your engine's going wah! But there isn't that with this. Just the danger of being thrown off the back and lots more wind. Don't mind if I just sneak in front of you there, chum. Right, let's give it a quick stretch on the motorway just to see how it feels at high speed. I cannot see those traffic lights at all. Can I go now? I think that's still red. That's a noise I won't be making today. What a beautiful day for it though. It's almost like I'm riding the Californian bike in the weather of California. And we're off. Let's see how she bears. It's very small. It does feel small when you hang off it a bit. Right. Punch it. Hyperdrive. Go. Oh, there's a lot of wind. There's a hell of a lot of wind, but that's 160 kilometers an hour. That's 100 miles per hour on an electric bike. Insane. Of course, the handy storage thing is trying to jump out because of the air pressure. That's not really great. Of course, as expected, I'm getting all of the wind in my chest because there's no protection whatsoever here. There's not even any kind of mini fairing. I don't know if there are any options for that. I have absolutely no clue. I mean, with that in mind, and of course the restricted range, the range for this is publicised as about 230 kilometres of city use, but it goes down substantially, down to about 140, I think it was, of highway use. You're not exactly going to be doing transcontinental city-to-city touring on this bike. Astoundingly fast. I mean, if you had short motorway stretches on your commute, this would be perfect because you could easily keep up with the traffic. You can even overtake, you can even jump into gaps without a single worry. This isn't what I was expecting at all. The cool thing is you can just pull over like I've done here just to check where I am. And you don't have to do anything. You don't have to stop the engine, you don't have to put it in neutral, nothing. You just stop and that's it. It's not making any noise. I imagine it's probably still using a little bit of power, but not a lot. I thought it was quite cool. Now the mirrors, even at motorway speeds, are completely rock solid steady because of course there's no vibration, again, nothing from the engine. So I have the clearest view of what's going on behind me. Except I do think that they're really wide, but they start very inwards of the handlebars. So the first third of this mirror is just my elbows, same on the other side. So you have to get some elbow waggling to really see what's behind you. I shall be nipping silently to the front here, thank you folks. You are joking, the only good road, and it's got friggin' roadworks! I do not believe it. So a few stats and figures. It's got a 13 kilowatt hour battery in it, which takes about 9 hours to charge to full. The range is supposedly 230 kilometers, as I said, in the city, about 150 if you're on the motorway. You can buy all sorts of quick chargers. You can buy an extended capacity battery, which actually goes in here. So if you buy the extended battery, you lose this storage space here, which is actually surprisingly big. Look at the size of that. You could fit a child's helmet in there, or a child, depending on how sick you are. Well, there it is. Zero Motorcycles, Zero SR. Fully electric motorbike with 67 horsepower and a quite frankly frightening 144 newton meters of torque. Not a bad looking beast, to be honest. I think they've done a pretty good job. I mean, they haven't done a huge amount to disguise the fact that they've basically got a Dell Optiplex PC stuffed in there. And as I said in the other one, I think these plastics, they're a bit large and flat and bland, and they look a bit cheap compared to the textured finish on the aluminium spar frame there, which does actually look really good. I mean, but that said, the fact that it's basically just a massive battery, they've done all right. I mean, overall, it's quite a good looking beast, I think. Aluminium rear swing arm with J1 calipers on it. I've not ever heard of them, but they seem to be doing a pretty good job. You can see there's the motor tucked in there, that's it. That circle there, that's the whole motor doing all of the work. The longest tail tidy the world has ever seen, and I'm guessing that that back seat isn't really meant for a person to sit on it, is it? Even though they've put the pegs in. But if you had a really small pillion, I think that'd be all right. Plug socket here to charge it up with. Looks like any old kettle lead will do it. And here is the carbon fibre belt drive, which apparently is completely maintenance free. Obviously you have to adjust the wheel backwards to tension it when it wears, but other than that there's no oiling. Yeah, I like the sound of that. Not quite shaft drive, but it's a step closer. There's that weird storage compartment. Zips open to give you your thingy. Oh look, owner's manual on a USB stick. Nice touch. Now that you obviously could take out, stick anything you want in there. Could fill it with ice and have a couple of cold drinks, I suppose, couldn't you? It's got stainless steel braided brake lines, both front and rear, which is nice. Although I don't really know what's going on here. This is just kind of sticking out in space. That looks a bit messy to me. Single brake disc on the front. It's a massive disc, but there is only the one. But as I've said, I guess with the really low curb weight of 188 kilograms, you don't need so much stopping power, and I haven't noticed them to be under powerful, to be fair. It's quite a cool side stand, isn't it? Big cast alley piece. I like the look of that. It feels nice and solid when you put it down as well. I know some stands are a bit floppy, they feel a bit flexible. Can't get under the seat. If you can, I can't find out how. I'm guessing that's because with the look of these big cooling fins here, there's a lot of electrical trickery going on in there, so there's probably no space. Big rear shock, that's a Showa shock. Piggyback, coil over. Very firm, but doing a great job. Yeah, not bad. Very expensive, but not bad. Sadly, let's go and give it back. Just had a bit of a nightmare. My camera decided to switch itself off. We can discuss later whether it perhaps is user error or technical problem. But in any case, I just lost a bunch of riding around in the countryside. But what I was talking about as I was discovering it was the bike feels light, it feels stiff, it feels responsive. I think the low weight with the battery slung central and low in the bike really helps. Very, very stiff suspension. But as far as I'm aware, both front and rear are fully adjustable, so you can dial that to taste. Bells and whistles on this bike. Not a lot, to be honest. It's got ABS front and rear. I don't think it's got any traction control, although I haven't come close to spinning the wheels up despite the torque, so I could very well be wrong there. Pretty much the only thing you can do with the buttons here is to change the mode for the actual performance between Sport, Eco and Custom. And I have to say the difference between Sport and Eco is quite marked. The Sport one is punchy, it's instant, whereas Eco is a lot more sedate, a lot more gentle with the acceleration, as I'm guessing it's obviously just feeding a lot less power into the wheels, which is how you save and become ecological, isn't it? The seat is really, really very firm, but that's good because as you give it a twist, you really get thrust into the back of it. So that firmness is very welcome. So very light and flickable. I mean, that curb weight really does seem to translate into the feel of the bike. It feels as light as it is. I reckon actually when you're on roads like this, when you're kind of hacking along, you don't miss the noise of the exhaust pipe quite so much, because when you're doing this kind of a pace, you often leave a lot of that noise behind you. But in town I have really, really missed the pipes. And at the speed of thought, you're up to the speed you want. Amazing. very impressed, Zero. You've done an incredible job here. Would I have one? I don't know. This particular bike, in the shop, it was on special offer at the moment, 18,000 euros. So pretty much the same price as a BMW R1200R. And although this has the torque, the incredibly smooth power delivery, and the throttle response is amazing. It's exactly where you expect it to be. But with all that, you've also got the limited range. I mean, things like my Euro trip, click on screen to see sections of that trip now, just wouldn't have been able to happen on a bike like this, because I would have had to recharge every 300 kilometers maximum. Probably nearer 250, and with a recharge taking 8 hours, it's just not going to happen. So this would have to be an as well as, or a city bike, and I personally don't want a city bike. I want a bike that can do everything, and 18,000 euros is a lot of money for a bike that can only do one thing. So for me, you're really close, Zero, but not quite. I just need a bit more range or a faster charge, to be honest, and I know that's beyond the capabilities of the technology right now. I mean, as a city bike, absolutely. If I was a lottery winner, or if I just had more money than I really knew what to do with, I'd tear your arm off and I'd get one of these every day. This has been a pleasure to ride, an absolute pleasure, especially through the city. It's so light, it's so responsive, it's always in the right gear. I'm starting to sound dangerously like I'm describing a scooter, but you get what I mean. It's got the power of a big bike with all of the benefits of a scooter, I suppose. So yeah, for me, it would have to be an as well as, and for that, it's just far too expensive. Of course, if you just want a weekend bike where you can hack out on a sunny day like this and do 250 kilometers and then stick it in the garage and charge it up for next weekend, then brilliant. This bike is made for you. A couple of things I am surprised about. I mentioned it in the other video as well. It's got halogen light bulbs. Missed a trick for some electricity saving there, surely. I mean, with bikes like the Yamaha MT-09 Tracer, that has completely LED headlights. Why doesn't this bike have them? I understand perhaps that would drive the cost up even further, but it would also just mean the range is a bit more. I mean, and also just silly things like the indicators. They're normal halogen light bulbs. I know they don't use a lot of power, but they use a lot more than LED ones would. So all in all, I'm really, really impressed with this bike, very impressed. The power is absolutely unbelievable, but at the same time, very, very accessible. There have been no sketchy moments. When I test rode the Versys 1000, the traction control light came on a few times. I even spun the wheel up a tiny bit. But with this, none of that, none of it at all. It's very, very predictable, but in a breathtaking, you're being forced against your will into the future kind of way. And so with that said, we come to the end of my little test ride. So, as ever, thanks very much for watching. Get on the old keyboardage and send me a comment what you think. Like, share, subscribe, send food, you know, all of that stuff. And I'll see you on the next test ride. Take care, folks. Woo!